My tag team partner, Kenny Roth, as we continue our countdown of the top 20 players in Murray State history. And today we are talking about Tevin Brown, the pride of Fairhope, Alabama. It is every recruiting class, everybody always has their favorites. But now I feel like we're getting on close to a decade of perspective. It may not be number one, but I feel like it's got to be pretty close toward the top of the list to have a trio come into the program at the same time of Tevin Brown, John Morant, and Shaq Buchanan.
Yeah, that was quite a haul with that group coming in, and I think obviously talent level was high with those three, but I think what goes not talked about enough is the work ethic that they brought to the program. Jonathan Stark had started that, and I think when this group got there, they got to witness that, as first-year players, Tevin and Ja as freshmen, and then Shaq Buchanan. And so they carried that on, and that was contagious within the program, that it's how critical it is to put the work in, to be a great player at this level. And it just doesn't happen. And I watched that as a coach with Marcus Brown, as Marcus was that way. But I'm telling you, Jonathan Stark and then that next group, they took it to another level. I mean, they just were in that gym constantly, and the coaches were investing their time with them on individual workouts. And Tevin Brown, Jeff, that a 4-year starter, started every single game in 4 years. I don't know. I assume we can try to find that out, but no one's going to beat it, right? I mean, he started every one of them. I loved that kid. I loved not only because he was such a great scorer, but man, he guarded the other team's best player every night for 4 years, and did it very successfully. And then to be able to be the offensive weapon he was and the leader he was, just what a fabulous player Tevin Brown was.
I think forgotten by a lot of people by how his career ended and all the accolades that were thrown at him was he sat out his true freshman season,
right.
Had a foot injury and had to redshirt. And look, we've seen lots of kids that have been highly touted, and until you get them on the floor, and certainly you get a couple years under their belt, you don't know really what they're going to be. But do you remember just, I guess, maybe the internal reaction of like, oh, man, we're not, especially after a team that won a championship in 2018 and got to the NCAA tournament, and you've got Terrell Miller and Stark and Morant as a freshman and Shaq, and you're like, maybe the best shooter in the gym sitting over there with a boot on.
And I remember in the fall workouts of coming into his redshirt freshman season, there was competition at those wing positions. Obviously, Shaq Buchanan was back as a senior, was going to play one of them. And then there was 2 or 3 other players that were competing for that. And Tevin, he was just anointed of that. Hey, here's your position. And so he had to really work for that. He ended up averaging 12 points a year that first year. But what he truly understood was, and this was his basketball IQ is so high that he made himself available to number 12 at all times. And he didn't just go hide in a corner of be able to, hopefully the offense will find me over here. He, as Ja was doing his things with the ball, he moved without the ball so that he had a straight line view of John Morant to be able to get it to him. And man, did he succeed in his role that first year of being able to shoot the ball.
Early in the season, had the 6 threes up at Southern Illinois, and that just first half avalanche where I think Racer's up like 30 at the half. And then I think a night that is overlooked of what Tevin did was the night at UT Martin, where John Morant he'd already had the big dunk at Alabama that kind of was the first, oh, wow, look at this kid. But then it was, we followed it up. And that was the internet sensation of Ja with that poster dunk. But, oh, by the way, Tevin Brown had 9 threes that night and tied the program record. It was I just always felt, and we'll get to more of this in a second, but boy, if Tevin could hit shots, and it was almost like if Tevin hit the first shot, you're like, we're good tonight. Like we're gonna he's got it. And because defenses didn't know what to do, it felt like they needed to collapse because Ja was so impactful getting to the rim. But you're like, we can't just leave that kid alone over there on the wing because he's going to kill us.
Yeah, he was, and as his confidence rose throughout that season, he was just so trustworthy with the ball. He, as I said, his basketball IQ was high, so he understood, where to be defensively, so that every rotation he was right then. And I still say I'm not sure that there's a player in program history that it had to be the all-time best horse player, because just shooting the basketball, he was phenomenal on being able to make shots. And then once he advanced into his second and third and fourth year, he was able to put that ball on the floor and actually not just be a standstill shooter. And that really caused problems for other teams defensively. Of how do we defend him? And then he became, the focal point, at least on the perimeter, of the scouting report on we got to know, obviously. Then KJ Williams shows up, and he becomes very good in the low post. But Tevin Brown, for a 4-year player like he was, I look back on his career, I just don't know that we give him enough credit, because there were so many other good players here at the same time with him.
OVC championship game, Ja, I was at 38 something. We just had that great duel in Evansville with Belmont. You got Dylan Windler. You got the Racers. I mean, it's kind of both teams on the cusp of, are you an at-large team? We found out Belmont ultimately was, but for all that Ja did, the biggest play of the night with a minute to go, Ja finds his guy, and Tevin had no fear stepping up and hitting the biggest shot of the night.
Yeah, and it was deep and contested. But you can see how in that play, how he slid away from Ja as Ja was driving that gap. And just that basketball IQ was so important for him to be able to know how to play and anticipate with Ja where that pass was going to come from. But he wasn't scared of the stage, of taking that shot really against anyone. One of my favorite games that we may get to is the game against Chattanooga in here at our place, where he had 30-something, 33, and it was just a phenomenal, offensive. One of the few times that he really was like, okay, I'm going to score until you stop me. But he had that ability to be able to get bunches when he wanted to.
End of his freshman year, you win in Evansville. Hey, we're going to the NCAA tournament and going to Hartford. And again, maybe overshadowed a little bit. Ja gets his triple-double, has his poster dunk on Marquette. But leading scorer of that game was Tevin Brown. He had 19. And sort of to the point I made earlier about sitting, you lucky radio guys, got to sit down on the court. I was literally up in the rafters watching this game. But first possession or so, the first time he got a shot to take a three, it was good. And I just remember thinking, this might be an early tap out, because if he's making shots, look out. And I think he ended up with 5 threes on the night and 19 points. And it was just stopping Shaq was a problem. But you had a third leg to that thing, and it was a wrap.
Yeah, and he, as much pressure as there was on that team to actually go win a game, and then get to have to play Marquette, was that that team felt that pressure. But boy, they didn't play like it that first night, as they certainly lit up college basketball world, as well as Hartford, Connecticut, with their performance against Marquette.
Ja leaves. He takes a little more of a pronounced, importance there on the offense in that 2020 season. Win another regular season championship and go. And get picked off at the Belmont with another backdoor heartbreaker. I guess that was probably due after beating him the last 2 years. But I guess, how did you see Tevin evolve into more of, look, Ja's not there anymore. That was a whole North Star that was gone of just gravity of everybody's eyes as much as anything defensively. That, okay, we need more out of you now, and to be more of an offensive threat. How did you see him sort of evolve into that role in the post-Ja era?
Yeah, you could see that the coaching staff had talked to him that he had to be in a more aggressive scorer. I guess that was second year he averaged almost 18 a game, was, from a numbers standpoint, maybe his best season, averaged 42% from behind the line that year. But he was more aggressive. He was maturing and being able to score multiple ways. From a leadership standpoint, Tevin wasn't a big talker. He was vocal when he needed to be. He was a tough love kind of teammate that he expected his guys, to be there where they were supposed to be, and how they were supposed to execute. And I think that carried through the team of those next 3 years, that he was not always the rah-rah guy or the guy who's going to stand up in the team meeting, but he was definitely looked to from the other players as a leader on that team.
One thing you mentioned at one point that you'd sort of he's a tough nut to crack. He was not a, hey, you're just going to be standing there and he's going to sidle up and be like, hey man, how's it going? And you carry on a 10-minute conversation with him. You kind of had to earn that conversation with him. And but I don't think I had sort of articulated until you'd said a conversation you'd had with him where he was like, I'm just shy. That's somebody playing in front of thousands of people every night. You think that would kind of peel away, but that was kind of his personality.
Yeah, it was. He was, his teammates loved him, but he wasn't just one of those that was going to overwhelm you with, when you were with him, that he wanted to be the topic of conversation and carry on. But he, once there was some trust built, he would talk to you. I always liked to talk to him after games because it was like talking to a coach about the game. He was so knowledgeable about, how the game went, what didn't get done, what they could have done better, that it was always interesting to talk to him. Always thought Tevin would be a great coach, just because of his analytical approach to the game. But man, he was, when you think about the minutes that he played, and Matt McMahon was notorious of, when he had a bell cow, that cow was going to milk, day after day. Now he was going to play 35 to 37 every night. A lot of 40s when you look back on
oh my
those.
gosh, yeah.
But he didn't wear down, and to have to guard the other team's best player every night on the perimeter is a difficult task. And man, Tevin was as good defensively as he was offensively.
That was always one of my favorite Matt McMahon-isms, whether it was about Ja, about Tevin. Their next coach can rest him. We're going to play no matter. Boy, you lose to Belmont, and it's obviously gutting in that sophomore year in the 2020 season. I don't know what was more gutting, to lose at the buzzer or to have an NCAA tournament taken away from you like Belmont did with COVID, getting a chance to play. The 2020-21 season, the COVID year, playing in front of nobody. What was, from the old coach seat there, just what was the biggest challenge that you saw the McMahon and his staff going through, the players going through? Because that year was just a nightmare for everybody, and the results kind of played out that way, that it was not a successful year, and no one in their wildest dreams would imagine what was to come. But it was definitely a step back from what we'd seen the previous couple of years. It
was, and obviously every team had to go through that.
Sure,
it wasn't like one team, did more, and the others didn't. But I think what affected Murray State during that time was that the advantage that this program has always had is the engagement of the fan base. And when you played at home, it was going to be a great crowd. When you traveled, you took a great crowd with you, and that was an advantage before tip-off, just about every night. And to not have that, I think at times now the other teams, some of them were used to not playing in front of anyone, and so
Right.
it didn't really affect them. But I think that was more of a problem for the Racers than we let on. The coaches would always come back and say, the other team doesn't have a crowd either. Why, I don't understand. But I just really think that was something that was different for our program and gave us an advantage. And so, that going into the game, you lose that every night. So I don't know how much that affected it, but it was, having to sit with Neil Bradley at Belmont up there 40 feet away from the nearest person and then making him wear his full head garment, mask, looked like something from the movies where all you could see was his eyes. Every time I would look at him, I'd just crack up. I couldn't get a sentence out when I turned my head to look at him over there, and he was wearing it just to prove, to the Belmont Bruin brass that he was following the rules. And because we started off wearing our masks, and then we were like, "There's nobody here but us." We were sitting up at top at Belmont, so we took them off, and pretty soon, one of the highly educated Bruins administrators came up to tell us we were in violation, and so Neil complied by pulling out his mask of all masks that he had.
And 5 years later, he's still cranky about that. And then 2022. Again, the thing about special seasons that I think in so many ways makes them special is you don't necessarily see them coming. And hey, we might be good, we might be better, but especially coming off a year that I think they're 500 that year before. And as I'm sitting here looking back, it was you beat Bellarmine at home, you go on the road to beat Illinois State, you go down. We went to wherever we were at in Florida, down in Naples or somewhere in that high school gym, and first game get beat by East Tennessee State, and you're like, oh, geez. And then they were just off to the races. And the first real, and it's sad that it was the same night as the it's tied to the Mayfield tornado, which was obviously such an impactful part to West Kentucky. But while that it was about to happen down in Memphis, Tennessee, back in the FedEx Forum for the second time in a decade, the Racers went down there and shocked Memphis. But this time it wasn't hey, we got way ahead and we're holding on for dear life. It was got way behind at the half and thought this thing was dead and buried. And Tevin Brown and Juice Hill pulled that thing out of the fire. What do you remember about the big win down there in Memphis?
Well, it's when you roll in to play a team like that, just the surroundings are, obviously Memphis has at times been a top 10 program in the country through the years. And so they have all of the support. I'll never forget they had two big tables set up on the baseline, and they had their masseuse down there, giving everyone, a rub down before the game over there. And I was like, my goodness, this is the elite of the elite here. And, as players, you're watching those things. And I think what's always interesting to me about our good teams is having that chip on their shoulders that, hey, I can play with you. Maybe I wasn't recruited at this level like you were, but I can play with you. And they kept fighting. And then that second half was just, I love to go back and watch that again because they, just the competitive nature in that team to not go away when you were down as much as the Racers were, and to come back and get that road win was huge.
Win down there, and then we get the Chattanooga game, which you mentioned before, where he had 33, 7 of 14 from beyond the arc. And it always felt And look, when you come into your career and you have the almighty Ja Morant that gets all the eyeballs from the defense and you're second fiddle at that point. To see him sort of grow into it, I think coming out of the Memphis game, and then you play. It's a really good Chattanooga team that came in Murray that night, and to hang 33 on him, it just kind of finally felt like, in his shy way, not that he would have done it, but to the world watching, it was like, damn it, I'm here.
Yeah.
And watch out.
And that was really, I think, the first night, as I remember, is that he played like Jonathan Stark would at night. That he would say, "Okay, boys, just get on my back. I'm going to carry this," because there were stretches that Matt McMahon just ran the offense through him in the second half, and he would deliver bucket after bucket after bucket. And the really good player for Chattanooga that went on to play at Gonzaga, he had, like 36 or 38, and they were guarding each other. And after the game, they just fell in each other's arms, at halftime, at half court, like, what a shame somebody had to lose this game. But it was one of my favorites, just to see Tevin fight and to be such a leader, and to really put the team on his back that night. It showed that, okay, this team's got some moxie about them.
Malachi Smith, 36 points, 14 of 17 from the field that night for 36.
Yeah. But they were guarding each other and both great defenders, and neither one of them could stop the other one. And that was a high-end game that night. I knew that night. The Memphis game was great, but that was Chattanooga was really good, and to go toe-to-toe with them and then get the win at the end was phenomenal.
4 days later, Racers go to Auburn, finished off that series, lost down there, come out of Christmas, and they just never lost again. What do you remember about the run and maybe the way, Tevin sort of maturely went about his business and just kept everything even? Because there were some haymakers in there, and especially once they got ranked, they go on that run and were down at Tennessee State and had to pull it out of the fire. And you go to 2 days later, you're at Morehead State. You got to pull it out of the fire against a really good Eagles team, but they just found a way every night.
Yeah, that team wasn't just where a bulldozer of just show up and go roll in and go undefeated in the league. They had to fight, and Matt McMahon was so good at truly keeping the blinders on of what you had to do today to get better, and to really push the team, one practice at a time, one game at a time. And then all of a sudden you look up and you're like, oh, wow, we're 10-0 in the league, or we're 12-0. And, you would start to turn some heads. I don't know that anyone thought that the team would go undefeated. Certainly had, ability to, but and talent. But, the league was tough. There were some good teams in the OVC that season, and to go on the road and have to win at places where you had to win was difficult.
One of my favorite games of that year, from a strictly selfish standpoint, because I thought my days of dealing with Murray State basketball were about to come to a close, was senior night. And it was what I thought my last game at the CFSB Center, and Belmont rolls in, and you always just get this sort of, nervous anxiety of, it's Belmont, this is going to be a fight and it's going to go down to the end. And, we won down at their place, and Juice Hill hit 1,000,000 threes, and you win by, 20, and you're like, well, that was crazy, and that's not going to happen again. And it didn't happen again, because this time they won by 33, and Tevin and KJ Williams just going bananas. How surreal was that game? Just watching it and just knowing the opponent and watching those guys just go nuts.
Yeah, it was those games against Belmont. They scar your heart for life, for the defeats that happen, and the wins make it that much better. And, you see that the state had been dealing with, the effects of the tornado through, really all of the conference season.
Yeah.
and then the talent that this team had, led, primarily with those two there. Juice Hill obviously was a big part of that. And Matt McMahon, was, I thought, just phenomenal in being able to use those weapons that he had to get the shots that he wanted at the right time. And then defensively, they were all bought in. That was a great defensive team just because they all bought into it on that end of the floor. But you look at what all that team did, to go undefeated, to then go through the tournament again, and it was quite a performance by that group.
One of my favorite Matt McMahon stories from that night was the game's over, and they're dropping confetti and everybody's taking pictures, and you're champs, and it's senior night and all that, and we were getting ready to do a live television hit, and he comes walking over, and I just kind of looked at him and tilted my head and said, "Man, I didn't see that coming." And he is still just on 10 out of 10 amped after the game. He goes, "Why not? Why didn't you see it come?" I was like, "All right, buddy, just settle down." Like he was ready to fist fight everybody at that point, but
yeah,
man, he did a hell of a job. That night was an emotional night, and we're now dealing with COVID years, and we had reached the point of they can come back for a fifth year. Hey, yeah. KJ, do you want to come back? Hey, Tevin, do you want to come back? I just remember the tears, and it was just such emotion from both of those guys.
Yeah.
But I just remember interviewing both and going, win, lose, or draw, today is it for them.
Yeah.
And I think just as the now getting older man, sentimental and all of it, I was just moved by this place meant the world to them, and they know this is the last page in this chapter.
Yeah, and those stories, as we got to watch play out in front of us, what's so difficult now, and it hurts me for our fans, is there's not going to be 3 and 4 year guys very often, if ever, anymore, that are that really are able to go beyond 1 or 2 years of understanding the heritage of this program and getting to enjoy the fan base, and to the extremes that it went to when you were a 3 or 4 year guy. I mean, those guys, they every 8-year-old in town, had Tevin Brown's, autograph, and knew, they were going to birthday parties, and they were just embraced by this community. And I think that's still available, but you're not able to get the longevity of it with the multi years. But that team, I can remember watching KJ Williams sitting in the floor after that game, just bawling.
Yeah.
And wow, that was you could see, hey, job well done for these 8,000 folks here, and the other 20,000 fans that don't come but follow, because he felt the love of the Murray State fan base.
Neat part about being around the program more intimately now that I am is that you not only get to know the guys better, but you get to meet their families, and you get to spend time with the families. And we on Radio Row have been blessed with cookie plates and all this. It's like, and it was always very front and center that Tevin's family was always there, and they were there supporting him every bit of the way. Anything you can share about Miss Nikki and just sort of the relationship that they had?
Well, to watch that, son-mother relationship be as strong as it was from the beginning of, I can remember coming over to shoot around, and, seeing her and her daughter, Tevin's little sister, being there, at 3:00 in the afternoon after driven all day, from Fairhope to come to games. But it wasn't like they just showed up on, every other Saturday night here and there. They were there all the time. And just the financial investment for families at that time, because there was no money going through the players to be able to help with that. And you could see how she appreciated how Murray loved her son. And she was so appreciative to the community and the fan base, because, you know, the fan base had just done what she's doing in that picture. The fan base wrapped their arms around Tevin Brown, and he was easy to like, just because he was, he was, his heart was good. You never heard anything about him off the court having any issues. He was very low key off the court, but as a player, obviously put a big stamp on this program.
You've seen some all-time great shooters, the Marcus Browns, the Isaiah Cannons. We could go on and on and on. There's only one name at the top of not only the Murray State 3 points, but the Ohio Valley Conference shooting list. And with the way college basketball is, I don't know if Tevin Brown's ever going to get knocked off that top spot. What did you, as a coach, appreciate the most about his ability to shoot the basketball?
Yeah, he was his form was beautiful. Just his setup and how he, had his hand positioned under the ball, that if he got an opening, he was going to be able to get it off. And then Tevin has some size. And so, he could rise up and make contested shots. I think he came as a shooter and then ended as just a dominant overall player. I mean, I think a player of the year in the league type player of, other years, other teams, he could be that player of the year in the league. Was a first team all league guy 3 times. And so obviously the league thought a lot of him. And then what I just really respect is just how one of a willing passer he was. He was a great post passer. KJ Williams just, made a living on how good because the defense had to come out and guard Tevin. They weren't able to double off him. And so he was a willing passer. But then just as a defender, the pressure of knowing every night that you walk out between those lines that you're guarding the other team's leading scorer. Yeah. And, oh, by the way, you've got to be good offensively too. Seeing him handle that just elevates him in my eyes as a player at Murray State.
One of the lessons learned from a media standpoint with Matt McMahon, and I learned how to suck up very quickly, was I did not ask him questions about Tevin shooting the ball, because he wanted to talk about all the other things he could do, what a passer he was, what a defender he was, and all of that. And so eventually I got it through my skull. We talked a lot about offense. He scored a bundle of points, but I know one of your favorite plays of his career came in Evansville as a senior against a really good Morehead State team. And in the final minute of the game, when it got down to crunch time, there's Tevin Brown blocking a shot to save maybe the game.
And the IQ to be able to know that he could fight through that screen and contest that shot without fouling. Because if you foul right there and put him at the line for 3 free throws, game's over. And Tevin was once again, he understood the game so well. He knew how to close out without fouling there and was able to block that shot. And I think you could see the emotion for him that, making that play was as big as hitting a bucket on the other end. And then he comes down and hits free throws to ice it. But that Morehead State team was very good. Obviously, Janai Broome, was just emerging. I guess that was year 2 of him there. And so he was that was a very good team. The Racers were able to get in the finals.
Go to the NCAA tournament, and I don't know. I don't know that there was a better game in 2022 than the opener in Indianapolis against San Francisco, and a game that, obviously Carter Collins got hurt early, which kind of dinged us in round 2 there against St. Peter's. But as good of a basketball game as you will ever see. I think 92-87 in overtime, and Tevin, especially once you got to overtime, it was a wild haymaker. Like nobody didn't score. It felt every possession somebody was scoring.
Yeah.
Tevin was right in the middle of all of it and was able to help the Racers get to the finish line.
Yeah, it was, that night there was one, San Francisco was really good, very
good.
well coached, as we've seen now, with their national championship banner at the University of Florida. But they were talented. And, when we were able to get that win, I think all of us had seen St. Peter's upset Kentucky, and we were like, San Francisco is the best team we're going to play,
right?
And so such a tough ending because you felt like for the first time, in the history of Murray State basketball, there was a paved road to get to the Sweet 16 that wasn't bumpy. Now obviously St. Peter's went on and proved everyone wrong by continuing to win there in the tournament. But when they walked out of the locker room, you felt like, okay, we got a chance against this bunch. And I just hate it. I can remember, riding the bus back home, and all the players are asleep in the bus, and there's legs across everywhere. Mac McMahon gets up and he's got to go to the restroom, and so he is walking on top of the bus seats
right.
all the way back. We've seen it because he doesn't want to wake up any of the players. He comes back through and I said, there's no coach in the NCAA tournament did what you just did for their team. I promise you that is welcome back to mid-major basketball. We're not going to jump on the charter and fly home from Indianapolis. We're going to bus. And so as great as that season was, you just it was just inches from, who knows where it could have gone. But still to celebrate their success and Tevin Brown's is I'll never forget that. It was as much fun as the Ja Morant years were. I had more respect for the lunch pail player that Tevin Brown was for 5 years, and he gets hurt. But every day he's that guy that, just was going to bring it every day, and ended up with a great career and still shooting that basketball.
Yes, he is. It's the unfortunate part of that year that, there's been 3 teams in Murray State history to win 31 games. And, the one in 2010, they get their lightning bolt moment with Denaro Thomas and Vanderbilt. And in 2012, to be top 10 in the country and get Dick Vitale dance. And they've got those flashpoint moments. This team just kind of quietly went about their business. And it was like Tevin was the perfect avatar for that of, I'm not going to say much. I'm just going to come in and do my job. And then you look up at the end and you're like, holy hell, they're 31-3. And it's yes, still sick about how it all ended for them.
When you look at the accolades that team, when you look back at what all they did, it's just amazing. And I don't think we're great at celebrating our great teams at Murray State, but that's a team that when you start comparing, you and I've done this. Could this team, how would they compare against this team? That team would be was hard to beat because there was there was skill spread out, all over that starting 5. And so, but Tevin Brown, I can remember seeing him and Ja as high school seniors. That after they had signed early, they came to a game one weekend. And I can't remember who we played at home, but we had a big win. It was a big win. I don't know if that was a conference game or not. And there was such a buzz about those two, coming. And little did we know what Ja Morant would turn into, and then Tevin Brown to turn into a 4-year starter, 3-time all-league player.
Tevin Brown finishes his career 1,915 points, OVC championships, 2 trips to the NCAA tournament. How do you want people to remember Tevin Brown and his career at Murray State?
Well, I think we have so many good players here, and our history is full of them. And so we say, wow, this one's number should be hanging, this one's number. And, Tevin Brown is worthy of being a Hall of Famer in Murray State.
Oh, slam dunk, yes.
And then even, higher levels than that. He is worthy of it. He truly is. And, not only did he have great individual performances, but his teams did. And to me, that's the true mark of a great leader of your team, of how your team's performance is. And he was able to play his role when he needed to be the role player his first year, and then his last 3 years, to go from skinny little freshman to all league for 3 years is quite a story for Tevin Brown.